Grüß, willkommen in einem abfragens video. Welcome to another exciting video, in this case episode 3 of my Star Trek, the original series timeline series of videos, analysis set of videos. In this video I'll be covering the evolution of civilizations. We're covering our third minor trope within Star Trek, but within Star Trek there is yet another minor trope where civilizations seem to develop into a non-corporeal form. This tends to have many common steps, and in some cases it fails. Let's discuss the process civilizations follow in order to become non-corporeal. The first step seems to be that when a civilization decides to transition to a non-corporeal form, they retreat to a single planet. For example, the Thasians occupied only a single planet, and they possibly achieved their transition comparatively recently, several hundred years prior perhaps even. They had space capability for a significant period of time, so they probably had a multi-system empire at some point in their history, but ended up on a single planet. The Organians also seem to occupy a single planet as well, although they seem to be rather advanced, and we don't really know how many planets they occupied when they transitioned, but it seems likely it was probably this planet. While the providers in the episodes The Gamesters of Triskelion had not yet achieved full non-corporeal form, as they still required a brain case, they were certainly moving in that direction. They also seemed to only occupy a single planet. Trelane and his parents, in the episode The Squire of Gothos, represent some form of pure mentality. Perhaps they are the Q. They seem to occupy no planet specifically, so may represent a very advanced form of the non-corporeal civilization type. We don't know how many planets they occupied before they transitioned, but once again, based on the other examples, perhaps it was probably only a single one. Or there is another theory I have, which I'll discuss later concerning the Q. Some races fail in this transition, such as the race on the planet, which I call Sargon, and which I believe are the Cedars. Nonetheless, they did retreat to a single planet before they failed in their attempt to achieve a non-corporeal form, at least as a civilization. Some races are on their way, but have not achieved the transition, such as the Metrons. I'm not certain of this 100%, but it appears to me they are some form of leave me alone navel gazing stage, or they're in a navel gazing stage. They also seem to be on only a single planet. Within this trope of a move to a non-corporeal state, there is also another minor trope, which is the non-corporeal races can adopt a physical form, such as the Organians and Trelane's race, while others cannot, such as the Thasians and the Providers. It seems that the ability of non-corporeal life to form a physical body takes time, as the Organians and Trelane's race have been non-corporeal the longest, and as a result can achieve this. The Thasians have only just become non-corporeal and cannot manifest physically, while the Providers have not moved from the brain case stage yet. The one big unknown is how long does it take to move from a physical to a non-corporeal form, and what are the steps on either side of this process. The first step seems to be the race retreats to a single planet, which implies population drop. This could be caused by increased lifespan or even boredom, or something I'm not aware of, but it is or seems to be the first stage. The inhabitants of Sargon, which is what I consider the Cedars, did the same thing, even though they were supposed to have colonized the galaxy. We can assume the Metrons may well have retreated back to a single planet eons ago as well. It's even possible the bicolored race, in the episode Let This Be Your Last Battlefield, may have entered this stage, or at least an early part of the stage. They were very advanced, had spacecraft, had mental powers, were on a single planet and had a very long lifespan, which appeared to be at least 50,000 years. A race such as this should have been on many planets, and perhaps were, but as their population dropped, powers increased and their lifespan increased, and they retreated to a single planet so they could, I assume, associate with their own kind. In this case, when they all assembled on a single planet, they discovered half the population with a mirror image of the others, at least in this particular case. This may well have been a rare mutation in the past, but now represents half the population, and may have precipitated the Fernie Great Filter very early for this race, resulting in them destroying themselves in a horrible civil war. The next stage, after the retreat to a single planet, seems to take a very long time. My wild guess is maybe even up to 1 billion years. During this stage, the inhabitants slowly move to a braincase existence. I also suspect before they move to a braincase, they develop increased mental powers, and only when they have achieved a certain mental power do they consider the braincase stage. Perhaps their bodies have atrophied to the point where braincase is preferable. The seeders move to a braincase stage far too early. As this was in response to them destroying themselves somehow, this is more of a survival attempt than any new stage in the evolution to a non-corporeal stage. The people of the Sargon people, had already failed before they went to the brain stage. Going back to the Sargon civilization, some form of great filter must exist during this process to go to a non-corporeal stage. Sargon claims this is when their minds become so powerful they feel they are gods. I expect this occurred when the races developed great mental powers, so became like the race in Forbidden Planet perhaps. The Seeders, that is the people from Sargon, obviously failed this test and destroyed themselves. My theory why this happens is some did not wish to move to a non-corporeal form, and a war resulted over this issue. This could be a viable great filter. If this is correct, the move to a non-corporeal form has to involve all the inhabitants of the planet in some way. I could be wildly wrong, but this is a theory which seems to fit all the facts that we know from the episodes, at least the ones that I have and the scripts that I have. Another possibility is the move to possess significant mental powers is the Fernie filter. An example of this Fernie filter is when Michael, in the episode Where No Man Has Gone Before, gained superpower and was simply unable to mentally handle it. He basically went mad and was a threat to all around him. Perhaps as the inhabitants of Sargon gained more and more mental powers, they went mad and started being a threat to everyone around them. Another example of this is Charlie in the episode Charlie X, who also gained superpower and was really unable to control himself. While he did not go mad, he certainly abused his powers constantly. In the episode Plato's Stepchildren, the survivors of Sandara gained a very mild version of the mental powers of the races ascending to a non-corporeal form. Because they gained this power the easy way, they also could not handle it and abuse their powers. This seems to be a common sci-fi theme in Star Trek and pretty much lots of other sci-fi as well. Apollo in the episode Who Mourns for Adonis also had this superpower. While he did not abuse these powers in any major ways, he still liked being king of the castle. In the end, he decided to follow his fellow travellers, presumably to go to a place to contemplate their navel, and eventually to be moved to a brain case and transcending. The interesting point here is Apollo had his powers because of a new organ in his brain. Perhaps this is a step all the civilizations who wish to move to a non-corporeal form must follow. Once you contemplate your navel long enough, then evolution creates a special organ in your brain which gives you greater mental power to allow you to even contemplate your navel even more. The Telosians may have undertaken this path as well, as they also have a form of great mental powers, although in their case it's not physical. Once a race has at least initially moved to a fully non-corporeal form, they cannot manifest physically. At least the examples that we have, they can't. But as they move through they can move through the galaxy in special spacecraft, as we can see with this Thalassian spacecraft. Eventually, they can manifest physically, as the Organians achieved, and also Trelane's race. In this case, they still seem to stay on a single planet, so I expect most of their mental energies are expending doing non-corporeal thing, with only a small part doing physical stuff, so why bother spreading out physically? Anyway, there's no need for them to spread out to other planets. They're not increasing their population in, let's say, the normal way, if at all. Now we come to the most controversial theory that I have. If civilization moves in this process, in this manner, then there must be a truly huge number of non-corporeal life forms out there. But we don't really see that. We see a few, but not a mass of them. It could be we simply have not explored the galaxy enough, but I suspect these non-corporeal life forms start merging into a single uber non-corporeal life form. After all, why would they not do this? If they have achieved some form of mental non-corporeal godhood, everything is possible, and they may wish to talk to other non-corporeal godhood races. This could very well be the Q. I could be wrong, but I think it's a nice theory and does explain a few things. Thus, the Q is not a single civilization that has transcended. It's actually the end product of many civilizations which seem to gather into a single identity or single godhood, non-corporeal godhood state. And so we come to an end of our rather non-corporeal episode 3 of my Star Trek The Original Series timeline analysis of, in this case covering the evolution of civilizations. The episode scripts can be found using the URL shown. Alle guten Dingen kommen zu einem Ende.